Hello, Mr. Kakito. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you today?
I'm doing really well. And should I call you Kakito? And Content
Wh-
Captains is the brand.
Whatever you want. Yeah, that's right. Bowtie Coquito is the name, and then Content Captains is the brand that I'm working on. Yeah.
Awesome. And could you tell us a bit about Content Captains and how you ended up on this area of Twitter?
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, so Jungle Journey. Let's see. So my brother, who's 100% VA disability rating guy, I
Mm.
think his at is the Big Repper. He is a longtime friend, and for a really long time, honestly, was like, you need to join the jungle. You need to get on Twitter because I'm like not on social at all, like in my personal life. And I think it was like near the end of 2021 that I was like, okay, man, whatever. Like, let's just see. And like did the standard like follow bow-tied bull, ox, like sales guy and all that stuff. And like immediately was enamored by the community in the sense of like everyone just trying to get after it, building real things, all of the philosophies and things that bull shares, especially from like a financial standpoint, like totally tracked for me. And so it was, yeah, like a really awesome community to discover really about a year or so after I got out of the military. And so ever since then, like been trying to build and catch up and learn. I mean, DeFi ed and all that stuff. Like there's so much to catch up on when it comes to crypto and all those things. So that's sort of the jungle origin story. And Content Captains itself, I think, is a culmination of doing exactly what I just said. It's been 2 years of like reading and trying to catch up and understanding where we were going. And for me, if OG like Coquito followers remember, like I first got here and started sharing all like my military footage, right? And then
Mhm.
I think I pivoted to like trying to teach swimming, which was like kind of successful and like people really enjoyed it. But then it was like I'd have to like build content for it and stuff like that, and it just wasn't that sustainable. And so I actually ended up going on a bit of a hiatus for a few months, just trying to like double down. If you remember Commoner, it's when like the economy was doing really bad, I think towards like the end of 2022. And like Bull was just preaching like double down on the W2, get promoted, do the thing, like yada yada, and like ended up literally following that plan to the T. And so then I came back reignited with passion and fire earlier this year with the idea of teaching content marketing, which is something I've been doing for like 10 years. So that's the long story short. I think the short version is Content Captains now is just definitely still in flight and being built, but my intention with it is to train folks on all the content marketing skills, and in particular full stack content marketing, which is a term that I came up with and brought to market to sort of identify folks who are generalists and know everything from copywriting to design and video production, storytelling, all that type of stuff, which I think makes the best content marketers and content creators.
So super interesting. And I want to dive more into what being a full stack content marketer means as well. But you mentioned you took this hiatus to
Yeah.
focus on your W2 and then you came back. Do you think that that hiatus like reinvigorated you? You came back refreshed. How would you put that into your journey as a positive, as a negative? Because I know people feel burnout. I have felt burnout many a time. So just
For sure.
wondering if like complete cold turkey for a month is a good option if you are feeling that kind of burnout.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I'll do you one better. I think I was probably gone for like 4 or 5 months. Like
Hmm.
I really cut off from the internet and from Twitter and all that stuff. And nothing really triggered it. Like I wasn't like, oh, something happened in the jungle and I was like, I'm done. It was more personal of like I was listening to Bull's advice of like doubling down on W2 and like just trying to survive layoffs and things of that nature. And also just reconnect with myself in a sense of like I tried the military footage stuff. Then I think I actually, oh, I forgot. I think I tried copywriting for a little bit. And then I
Mm-hmm.
tried swimming. And then it was like, okay, I just needed direction. And so during those months, not only did I double down in the W2, but I also just read a lot. I read a lot of business and marketing books like I do anyways, because I'm kind of a nerd about this stuff. But like one of the ones that I discovered was Snow Leopard by I think the Category Pirates guys. And then I discovered the Category Pirates newsletter, which really just like that was the catalyst of like, wait a minute, like, why don't I just teach what I know? You know what I mean? Like, I'm a swimmer, but I'm not like a swim coach, you know? So like, why would I be teaching swimming? Like, of course, it makes way more sense for me to be teaching what I do every single day and what I've found to be extremely successful. But yeah, that's kind of the story there. Like, I do think if you're feeling burnt out or anything of that nature, like, you just have to reassess and like connect with yourself again because it's been nothing but an incredible journey this year. And it's just crazy to think it's already been a year and I'm just now launching something. So, like, this stuff takes time, it takes effort, it takes iterations. Like, you have to both be patient and hungry. Like, you have to have velocity and thoughtfulness. Like, it's such a juxtaposition. I'm sure you feel this too, commoner. So, it's just absolutely anytime you need a break like that, I do think it is for the better.
Yeah, I read, I think it was an opossum tweet a few weeks ago that was saying can't really multitask when it comes to big life priorities or focuses. You have to do your W-2, but to be scattered in your in your Wi-Fi money efforts or be feeling like you're drifting a little bit is really debilitating. It makes you really feel depressed isn't the right word, but just you don't want to try anymore if you do these winding paths. And I am 1,000% do the winding path, still on the winding path.
Yep.
So I also think that you were able to be clinical and just say, no, it's not this military footage. It's not the swimming. It's what I do on my day job. This is what I
Hmm.
know I'm good at. Whereas I myself struggle with being clinical and like stopping one of the streams that I'm working on because it becomes a passion of mine and then I can't be as surgical about it, which
Wow.
is not a good thing. You have to really cut passion from money if you want to do this, because what you're passionate about may not be what is so profitable. And I am learning to understand.
I totally agree with you there. I think love swimming for sure. Love my time in service for sure. So like that totally tracks for me. Like those were sort of passion projects and like content marketing. Yeah, like I've been doing it for 10 plus years. Like I have experience in it. I do relatively love it. I do think it's an important skill in general, especially as we continue to digitize and like Wi-Fi money continues to build in importance and like the creator economy, all that type of stuff. But like I wouldn't say I'm passionate about it, commoner, you know?
Mhm,
Like
mhm,
I know it. So, okay, I'm going to teach it. You know what I mean?
totally. And so, what's your definition of content marketing and specifically this term full stack content marketing?
First and foremost, content marketing is nothing but the creation of digital assets that you deploy out into the ether and into the internet to attract highly qualified leads. I would say there are three prongs to this. The first prong is you're creating digital assets to attract those highly qualified leads. So that's your SEO blogs, that's your social posts, all of those organic channels need content. That is what a content marketer creates. I would say the second job, especially of a content marketer in house, this is less so for content creators, but for content marketers in house, the second prong is the go to market enablement, right? And so if you're working at a startup or really any company, you're probably going to have some sort of go to market team, which is like a sales force or anything of that sort. And your sellers need content to close deals, whether that's slide decks, one pagers, whatever it may be. Those are the things that you need to be supporting and creating. And the third prong, again, for a content marketer in house, I think of is you are the synthesizer, you are the glue between both the marketing team, go to market teams, and other cross functional teams because you are the epicenter. There is nothing that gets created. There is no goal that gets accomplished without content marketers creating the content that each of those teams and individuals need to do their job. So, whether that's demand generation, needs ad sets, who's going to make those digital ads? If you are in sales and you need a one pager, who's going to make that one pager? If you are the founder and you want to go get venture capital for your startup, who is going to build the pitch deck? I think a full stack content marketer is a type of marketer who can create multimedia content that effectively positions tech products. And so if you break that down, a full stack content marketer, this is a term that I created to specifically talk about these types of folks. Any marketer can do this, any person can do this, right? Who can create multimedia content, anything from copywriting and SEO to video production, category design, all the things that you need to be a well rounded both content marketer and have the business acumen that you need. And that effectively positions tech products. That part of it to me is the really important piece. I am very focused on tech startups. However, I think the premise remains the same. If you're going to position a product exceptionally well, you also need to have the business acumen to understand what positioning and messaging is, what category design is, all those two different things. Commenter, we were just talking about this with your stuff, right? Like knowing your target audience, knowing exactly how you fit into the market, and all those things are all really important. The reason I think this is a key differentiator above all is because content marketing in general right now, I think is very full of grifting. It is very much so like an outdated function, even though it continues to become somehow more important. So it's like resources, training, professional development has not caught up to content marketing. And so that's the gap that I found and the gap that I certainly want to fill. If I were to give you like the 7 core marketing skills that a full stack content marketer needs to know, it goes as follows. It's 1, copywriting; 2, video production; 3, graphic design; 4, search engine optimization; 5, category design; 6, positioning and messaging; and 7 is storytelling. Those are the 7 foundational core content marketing skills that I believe full stack content marketers need to be successful, and or full stack content creators, and or anyone trying to build a Wi-Fi biz, real like brick and mortar biz, whatever it is. Like attracting the right audience through organic channels is a key differentiator in this market. And I just don't think there's enough resources to sustain the level of demand that there is to go do this as either a career or a side business.
Okay, fascinating. I have a couple of different questions.
Let's go.
Thoughts. So interestingly, so I work for a consulting firm and
Sweet.
I happened to be on a go-to-market case over
Whoa.
last spring. And so I was working for not a startup, but an enormous company, but doing exactly what you described.
Mm,
They hired us to come in and make their sales force more effective by giving them new presentations in hand, new way to handle objections. And my job specifically was to interview the Salesforce guys, the best of the best, and write like talk tracks, they called them, or word. The reason why I bring it up is because when we were leaving, one of the things they asked us to do was to help them build this capability in-house. And
hmm
they were asking us, how are we going to find someone to do this? Like they really struggled with filling the position on a permanent basis after we were leaving. So all that is to say, companies of all sizes need help with this, and they especially need help with this in the modern era. They need a refresh of how to do this on the internet, on how to do this with new shiny presentations,
Yep.
because a lot of these very established companies are behind the 8 ball on this.
No, I totally agree. I think the monoliths in the world are definitely behind. That is why I'm so focused on startups, because I know startups at least are really embracing content marketing. I think there's still more work to be done there, but I totally agree the gap is quite enormous. And you just touched on something that is so fundamentally not spoken about ever, because I follow a bunch of content marketers on LinkedIn, which is primarily where the audience lives. And
Mhm.
uh, anyways, something that I never see anyone talking about is the go to market stuff. So I'm sure Bowtie Sales Guy would be extremely proud for us having this conversation, because at the end of the day, like everyone in marketing always struggles to find ways to attribute their work to revenue, right? And
Mhm.
business goals.
Mhm.
And like, I'm so sorry, but like I, I always have such a hard time whenever I hear that marketing and sales has like beef or whatever, because it's like I don't care how much beef there is, like I'm there 110% to support our sales force, because like sure, yeah, I have this blog I need to write, or I have this like beautiful web page experience that I want to deploy on the website. Like I have my own projects, but like if a seller pings me on Slack and goes, hey, I'm on a conversation with an enterprise seller, like do you have a one pager, and like we don't have it or whatever, like you spin that thing up as fast as possible, because like if they close that deal, yeah, sure, I'm not making commissions off of that, and maybe they don't even give me credit for it, but like when it comes down to it, like I just made the business more successful. And so when the time comes of like, I wonder who should we let go during like a riff or like layoffs, like they're not going to let go somebody who's out there getting the work in and like supporting the go to market efforts. So that is just a very understated side of content marketing. And a lot of folks just like to focus on like SEO or like making videos or whatever. It's like that stuff is cool and that stuff is totally matters. But Yeah, you just hit the nail on the head. Like sellers need to sell and they need help.
And I think a lot of companies struggle with that cross-functional
Yep. Oh
dynamic
yeah.
that you're describing
Yep.
because it does feel siloed from some of the
Hmm.
companies that I've worked for. And what it really should be is like the sales force is the customer of the analytics team. They're also
100%.
the customer of the marketing team because they're in front of the actual customer. They know what they need. And
Yep.
a lot of times you don't get that value attributed to the sales force, in my
Yep.
experience. And I can be honest and say, when I was coming into this, I was like, sales always felt like a used car salesman to me. Like I never gave it the credibility and the value that it really deserves when these people
Sure.
are going in to the customer on the phone, making it happen. No matter how good your product is, if this person cannot do their job and execute, you're not going to sell. Like it is such an important skill. And I think across companies, it's still not given the credibility. It's almost like sales needs a new brand. Like you need to do a
Yep.
better job of saying how important you are, which is so interesting.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I mean, it's really hard for me to understand it. Like this is my first startup. I've worked here for 2 years. I guess I could say at first I didn't really understand it. And now I kind of get it. And I think what I get is, yeah, the bigger it gets, the more those silos and those walls go up, right? And so somehow trying to keep that cross-functional like collaboration alive is like such an important part. And of a business. And I seriously think it's up to the like in my world to the content marketer to do it, but like marketing in general, like this whole thing of like, oh, sellers have like ego or like they don't respect us or whatever. Like you got to let go of that stuff. Like sure, on a one-to-one basis, you shouldn't tolerate that kind of crap, but like when it comes to like supporting go to market teams, like that is your job. I'm sorry, like that's just what I deeply believe from a marketing perspective. Now that's two sides, right? Like we're humans. We have the ability to, have multiple truths exist. Like the other side is, yeah, there's a strategic marketing like function that you have to go out and like tell those stories and like position yourself effectively and generate organic traffic and all those things. But when you think about the content marketer's job and specifically, 100%, it is a dual effort of having to support both go to market teams and your own content marketing activities.
And so a one pager is usually like a selling asset. And so teaching them how to make that, is that writing the copy? Is that designing it in Photoshop? What exactly does that look like?
Creating prompts for folks to build real content for startups like Biome, Swipe Builder, and Ramp Health. I'm actually going to create a Figma file. So on Figma is where a lot of content marketers live and play today. What I'm planning on doing is perhaps doing 3 different one pagers designed for each of those startups I just mentioned, and then assign different students different one pagers to go out and fill out. So, yes, they'll still have to write it. But then if we can put it into a Figma file, they can download that PDF into like as a one pager, like we just mentioned. And now they have a real asset that they can put into their content marketing portfolio. So, that was a really long winded way of saying both. I 100% want to enable you to learn how to write that content and allow you to do it in real time, but then also put it into a nice design format so you're able to actually have the asset for yourself and show it off. Like I think that's the biggest gap in our education system, of course. And so as I see the trend of e-learning, like I basically this boot camp is what do I wish I would have known 10 years ago? You know what I mean? Like I'm just going to put it all in one place and then, hopefully that's successful.
Yeah, the reason why I ask is because the writing always gets the rap for being the hardest part, which I think is
Sure.
fair because it's you have a very small amount of words and you need to be compelling. But I struggle with the design aspect. That is
Sure.
always what my bosses at work tell me is that my slides are ugly. So, you've mentioned these 7 skills. I think something people may be wondering is why do I need to be good at all 7? Why would I not just specialize and be an SEO and start my own service business where I help people do SEO for their websites, or I become a copywriter specifically? What's the benefit of doing all of the skills?
First, my hope is that the exposure you get to all of these skills through my resources will spark an interest for you, right? So if you decide that SEO is like the most invigorating thing for you, then like go get after it. And like Yes, I think
No one
building
ever.
yeah, said no one ever, right? Yeah, said no one ever. Yeah, SEO is so hard. But anyways, um, like maybe like I'll create that full stack SEO course or whatever, and like you can go down that funnel if you'd like. But like the hope is for you to just get exposed to it, understand the industry, understand these skills enough to be dangerous, and then for sure, like go turbo on whatever inspires you. That's one. The other side is the idea of being a generalist versus like a specialist is nothing new in my opinion, but in content marketing in general specifically, I would say I would say like literally 90% of content marketers are copywriters, and that's where they start and that is where they stay. A lot of them will say, yeah, I kind of know SEO too. It's like, no, that's not true. They do not know SEO at all. And so they're really just glorified writers. And so that's where OpenAI coming in, like people were freaking out if you remember when that stuff came out. Like that's all these guys really know how to do. And so you just said a perfect example. Like I'm sure your slides are great, but you don't know how to design it well. So then now you have this sort of gap that you need someone to support you with, right? And so being a generalist is something that inspires me a lot, and it's just something that I'm modeling based off my own career. So when I got to this startup, the SVP of marketing who hired me, she then later after she hired me told me like, dude, like you're like a marketing unicorn, you know that. And I'm like, what? Okay, that term is kind of weird, but anyways. And she was like, yeah, because you know all of these things. In fact, she told me she originally wanted to write a job description where all of the skills that I came with were documented, and that the people team stopped her because they were like, there is no way you're going to find someone like that.
Hmm.
And so serendipitously, I just happened to apply. They found me. We've had great success over the last 2 years, and that's that. But like, those are the things that inspire me. And so today I've hired a team, I've scaled a team and all these things. And like, I see the gaps in themselves, right? Like, being a specialist is 100% valuable. Do not ever misconstrue that. But I think there should be a group of individuals who are more generalists. And I think that's how you're going to get really, really dangerous and like really accelerate both your career and your Wi Fi business.
1,000%. And I am definitely of the generalist group. Like I am a proponent of that simply because
Mm-hmm.
when you're starting out in any lean circumstance, whether it be a startup or a one-man show, you do not have the time or the money to outsource everything
Nope.
you don't know how to do. Like the idea that I'm going to write a video, but I'm going to hire someone else to edit the video and then get someone else to make the thumbnail and then get someone else to do the SEO. Like anything of value that you want to start on your own, you're going to need to do every single one of these things.
No, I totally agree. What happens when when you do get the money and you want to outsource? What happens if you don't know how to communicate effectively with a video editor and you don't know how to describe what you want or what vision you have? Or what happens when you hire an SEO agency and like they're just pumping up numbers and you've never understood SEO at all, and so you're being sold a dream. So like even from that perspective, like just having general knowledge is just like a net positive no matter how you shape it. You know what I mean?
And especially when you're starting out, you may be really good at something and you have no idea
Right.
unless you give it a shot.
Right.
So,
I totally agree. I
and
totally
let's say
agree.
you want to specialize in SEO, you have to make a website for your SEO business, or you have to write effective copy to get people to sign up for your SEO business. Like, you just never avoid it.
Well, and I feel very lucky in my career. Like, this whole thing started when I was in high school and like I joined the yearbook staff, and I did that for 4 years. And like, that's where I learned InDesign and like was working with design and like writing and photography and all those things. And that really sparked sort of my interest in journalism. And then from there, I enlisted in the United States Air Force, where I became a broadcast journalist. And so during that time, my whole shtick was video, right? So if I go turbo on anything, it would be video, even to this day, right? And so I have a huge video portfolio from my time in service. And then after I got out, I knew I needed to fill like my sort of knowledge gaps. And so I went and got my MBA online while I was working my first marketing jobs. And then serendipitously, like I found myself in a one man marketing team where I not only did all of the organic marketing activities for a construction company, but I also wrote the RFP responses, which is like the only way that our company made money. And so in that year, I wrote 12 long form RFP responses that won $250 million. And like, that's what really chiseled my copywriting and design and like just continued to like improve that. And it wasn't until 2 years ago when I joined this startup that I got what is considered, quote unquote, my first content marketing job. So, funny enough, for almost 7 years, I was creating multimedia content, had no idea content marketing was like a marketing function, you know? And so I just happened to sort of like accidentally become a full stack content marketer. And I have found it to be a very enriching and like high paying like endeavor. And certainly like I just think more people that do this, you're either going to get paid at the W2 or you're going to get paid building your own thing or both. You know what I mean? So it's like it's just a net positive.
Yeah, I understand totally what you're talking about. I had never heard it called content marketing. I guess I'd
Right.
never thought of its name before. So that's interesting that, it's a function that I've never, when I would go to look for a job search, I would not type in content marketing job.
Never, never, never.
So
And
how
I
would you
still,
find a job
yep,
like this then?
nope, nope. How did I find it?
Yeah.
That's funny. So my story is the VA guy, he was pushing me not only to join the jungle, but he was pushing me to join tech because we were both in the Air Force and he was an air evac guy. And he pivoted really hard and like went through a tech boot camp and everything. And now he's like an SRE. And
Oh.
so he was like, dude, you gotta join tech. You gotta join tech. And I looked at boot camps and stuff, and I was like, there's no way I'm like getting rid of 7 years of experience to like become a zero at something. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
and I had no passion for it. It's like there's just no way I would be successful at that. And so because of that, and because the pandemic pushed remote working as like a thing, I was like very specifically looking for remote jobs in the tech startup space. And I found a job posting for a senior director of content marketing and product marketing. And so, like a complete buffoon that I am, I love shooting my shot. I 100% am not a senior director level at all. And so, I sent my resume, and somehow, just the stars aligned. The SVP of marketing I just mentioned, she had just joined, was just starting to build the team from basically zero because they had just gone through a Series B fundraise. And she was still reviewing every resume herself, Commenter.
Mm.
And when she saw that I was a journalist and that I had video and writing and like all these other things on my resume, she called me and she was like, hey, we don't have this job posting, but like I need someone to lead content marketing here. And I was like, that's fine. Go. Let me know. It's been nothing but like full accelerated growth in this space. And I just think I'm kind of reaching the end of the W2. We've scaled it from 10 million to 50 million bucks. So you can imagine how different that organization is now.
I am slowly getting back on the job market, and a lot of people from my firm end up going into startups, but I found it
Cool.
difficult to find quality startups to work for.
You know what? I would actually refer you to Bowtie Night Owl. I've talked to him a little bit about this. Like, he seems to understand how to like like review people's financials really well. And it's like, couldn't be me, dude. Like that sounds awesome. I wish I could do that. And he's told me like that's something that he likes to look at when looking at startups. So one piece of advice: startup.jobs, I think is the website, but definitely just Google startup jobs and you'll find it. Is like the best website for looking for startup jobs. It's so good. It's like my favorite place to look. And so definitely start there. From a quality perspective, I have anecdotal things that I look for. Product market fit is such a lame term, but like, are they the category leader in their space? Do you get excited about the mission? Like, do you think it's category defining? Like, do you think it's like, that impressive of a product or not? Like, you have to relatively be bought in, right? Like, I work for a e-commerce Shopify app. So I'm pretty bullish on Shopify. I'm
Hmm.
pretty bullish on e-commerce. And like, sure, like these Shopify apps do their thing. So like the niche that they operate in, like totally makes sense. We are definitely the category leaders in that niche. And so those were some of the things I would look for today. I was not thinking about that last time. And that's probably the third piece of advice I would share is like, if you're thinking about a startup commenter, especially with experience like you have as a consultant, like you need to chase the bag like heavy. And
Mm,
like the biggest way I think you can do that is if you can find a startup that just got like a series B, maybe a series C fundraise, like go get after. I would prefer you find someone that just did like a series B, like within 6 months, let's call it, because in theory, they're building out sort of the robust people and systems at this point, right? Um, and but they're still small enough to where like you can get a little dangerous with what you're asking for. You know what I
mm,
mean? My whole thing is you need to get paid a number that makes you comfortable with like adversity. Okay. So like for example, 2 years at a startup, it's been like 10 years on earth. You know what I mean? Like it is so much work. It is so much change. It is so many pivots. There, the economic conditions shifted dramatically in e-commerce over the last 2 years. Like it has been nothing but like max pain, of course, max gain in the sense of like learning and all that cool stuff. But like all of my colleagues are burning out and dropping like flies because they are not getting compensated enough. So they're burning out because they're tired and because they want a promotion, they want a raise, and all these different things. Like that's just extra weight that you should not carry with you, right? And so when I think about getting that number, get a number that will keep you happy for as long as possible and that will sustain you during hard times. I like to say this all the time. Whenever you sign the dotted line, you're immediately a used car. Okay. Like no one will care about you when you are in house. That promotion, that raise, commenter. When I got promoted, I mean, I get paid well, but like I can share with you, when I got promoted last summer, I got a 1% bump.
yeah,
1%, you
yeah.
know? But because I already was happy with my number, it did not offend me. I did not care because I was happy to keep playing the game. When you are in interviews, like that is the only time where you will be respected fully in your desires and what your numbers are.
Yeah, I think that's totally true. And I'm drawn to startups for the leanness and for the different hats and all of those things. There's a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of performance reviews, and
Yep.
like skill trackers and where you are on a check plus, check minus scale on 36 dimensions
Yep.
every 6 months. Somewhere leaner, like a startup, would just be good for me to get out of the ivory tower a little bit. I think my dad would have a heart attack, but I'm still gonna do it. But
You see, that's such a fallacy. Oh gosh, there's so many things
yeah.
we can jump on. Like the acceleration is second to none from a learning perspective and an exposure perspective. Like, I don't think I would be doing the content captains thing that I'm doing today had I not been working at this startup. And I don't know that I wouldn't have known the things I know today and how content is applied to real go to market and business results. And so I'm forever grateful for that. It was a huge accelerator in learning. The other part is like volatility. If you remember, like, yeah, there was a lot of tech startup layoffs, but like the layoffs really happened for like Facebook and like Google and stuff. So, like, I think there is a fallacy there too of like monolith companies are safer. And I just don't know that that's totally true. And I assume you're probably around my age or maybe a little younger. And like, that's the time. Like, let's just do it. You know what I mean? Like, take that risk. You can always recover. Like, the ivory tower will always be there for you. You're a consultant that works for a large firm, commoner. Like, you'll forever have the opportunity to go back. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And something that is a con at my current place of work is that it's all project based. So you
Sure.
make something, you get to know the client, and then you leave and you're gone. And you're
Mm,
never in that industry again. You never talk to that client ever again. You have no idea if your solution or the thing you made them even worked because no one lets you know. And it makes me like not care about the product, which is both good and bad. But I
sure.
think working at a startup where you feel like in your bones that you're a part of something bigger than
Yes.
yourself and not
Yes.
the family, which is such a canned word, but like
Yep.
you feel like you're on a team again. I miss that. I don't have that.
Oh, I could not agree more with you. Like, I think here's the thing. Like, I'm originally from Puerto Rico. So like community and culture are totally like a deeply integrated thing for me. Then I joined the military. Okay, that's its own culture and like different sort of thing. When I get out, I work for two monoliths, were my first two jobs, right? And immediately I'm like, oh my gosh, like, how do I fit into this space? Like, this makes no sense to me. It was horrible. And so at the end of my second job's tenure is when I joined the jungle. And so, yeah, digital community, but like I definitely still feel like a part of this and like really enjoy connecting with folks like you and like whoever else is like in my DMs and whatever. Like I really love that aspect because I think the commonality is like sort of black sheep trying to get after it and like that kind of hunger and stuff is like something that totally fires me up. And so finding this community was and continues to be quite literally like life changing. And so then finding startups was sort of my professional side of finding a community because I totally agree with you. Like there is no feeling like making a thing, deploying that thing, and like immediately seeing a business impact. And like when you're just like a, one of a thousand, that's pretty hard to feel.
Yeah, interesting. So, a lot of times what I've heard is that the startup world markets themselves as you see your impact day to day. It's energizing. You're doing a million things. But I've heard from some friends who have done it that it can be a mixed bag. You don't get the credit for the things that you do. It can be really a burnout situation. So it really depends on the startup, which is why I think I'm like being very specific about the one that I try to apply to. But I wonder if you've had that mixed bag experience.
Yeah, I would say anecdotally, without knowing further details, I would probably guess that like the earlier the startup is, the more pain, right?
Mm,
The later stage the startup is, the less pain, but the less reward, right?
mhm,
So when I told you this whole series B thing, like that is going to be an indicator for me because a series B tells me you have not only found product market fit, which is like a seed phase, but then like you've acquired your first few big customers. That's kind of your series A. And your series B is like, oh, suddenly like are you leading your small category right now? Like to me that is that perfect pocket of like go join that because you're already joining what is like a hyper growth startup. Because then by the time you get to Series C, now you're maturing a little bit. And even when you go fundraise for a Series C, it's a very different like strategy than Series B. Series C, you're finally starting to show some financial modeling and like you're showcasing like what your growth plan is. It just becomes a lot more corporate at that point. And
mm,
then from then, it just continues to mature and the bureaucracy continues to seep in. So that nice pocket between B and C and maybe a little bit past C, again, 2, 3, 4 years of a startup's lifespan, that is going to be, I think, the most invigorating pocket for you. And like certainly I'm taking my own advice. Like I'm currently working with Bowtied Resumes or Bobcat to like get my resume spun up because it's just gotten too big for me. Like I'm not
mm.
enjoying it as much. And so that I'm telling you exactly what I'm going to be doing moving forward.
Okay,
Yeah.
really, really good advice then. I had not even been thinking about like the exact size of startup. I was more
Yep.
so thinking about the industry or like the financial performance,
Yep.
but the size makes a ton of sense
The
actually.
size makes, the size is such an easy indicator because usually, especially on startup jobs, you're going to be able to see what
Mhm.
they, because like these startups like to flex at commenter, so
Yeah.
you'll see it. And if not, you can just Google them. And if they have no press release or whatever, like next, move on. Like these are small indicators. I think the compensation scale will also be a quite good indicator for you as well. That's something that I look for. It's like, are you like completely out of pocket or like, are you at least within range? Like that makes more sense. Um, and I actually would almost uh, advise you not apply and actually just apply to more and
Mm,
get into the interview process because I'm sorry, but like the way you're treated and handled during the interview process and like the people team and all that type of stuff, like there is no better indicator, in my opinion, of someone's culture, right?
yeah.
And so if you're just dragged along and it's terrible and it's messy or whatever, you're going into a tough situation. Actually, 100% VA guy, is trying to join startups actively as well. He works for a big monolith right now. And one of his startups, I think he's like not that high of a role. And it took like 3 or 4 months. And I was like, I kept telling him, dude, you got to pull out of this interview process. Like, what is going on? And he stuck his guns, he stuck through it. And when the offer came, it was a terrible offer. And so he didn't do it, you know? So total mess.
Yeah.
So those are some of the indicators for sure.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And the last thing I'm wondering about startups specifically is, so we mentioned the good parts, which is you're out of the monolith, less bureaucracy, more independence.
Yep.
You are working really, really intense hours for a company that is still not your own. As you continue to build up your Wi-Fi business and start your own thing, does that grate on you at all, those hours for a company that is not your own, or you still prefer it to sandbagging at a monolith?
Commoner. You're like about to make me cry or something here. Yeah, I mean that's 100% sort of the impasse, I guess you could call, like that I find myself in today. Like your W-2 is your first business, right? Like I have been working on this for 10 years
Mhm.
and just now I got like a pretty good salary, right?
Yep.
Like if you think about it as a business, then it's like, okay, it makes sense. I put in 10 years and now I'm getting compensated for it. Cool. Well, I've only been doing content captains for a year.
Mhm.
So I can't expect it to 2x what I did in 10 years, right?
Mhm.
So that has been the mentality that has allowed me to continue staying at the W-2, which is like, okay, well, I can kind of let this run on auto because I know this game and I've been doing it for 10 years. I need to pour more energy to the Wi-Fi business. Yeah, the demon is creeping up on me, Commenter. I wanna quit. I wanna quit.
Yeah, I think a
Oh
lot
my
of people
gosh.
get there in the jungle. I just was wondering specifically at a startup
Yeah.
where it is so lean and you are requested to do more than your job description quite often, that I wondered if it was maybe grading a little bit more than a normal 9 to 5.
Actually, then let me answer you directly.
Yeah.
I think anyone who's listening to this is probably in the jungle. And if you're listening to this, you are probably extremely capable of reaching and accomplishing those demands without burning out.
Mm.
Commoner, just from this conversation and from everything I've seen on Twitter from you, I know you're a high performer, right? So, like, you have to remember too, folks don't want to work that hard and folks don't know how to work smartly, right? On average, maybe on a slower week, I'm putting in 4 to 5 hours. But like, I know strategically when something is high vis enough or high impact enough that I need to go all in. I need to put in 14 hours to get this thing shipped, right?
Yeah.
And because I took those 4 or 5 hours for myself, I was able to do that versus normies who like show up and punch in from 9 to 5 and like take real lunch breaks, like are just online all the time. They have Slack on their phone, which by the way, I've never had Slack or my work email on my phone, would never advocate for that. And so, like, all those things that you do, you start thinking that you're like some sort of hero commenter. Like, well, if the organization, like, if I don't do this, like, everything's going to fall apart. And if like I don't show up and do this, like, whatever, once you start thinking like you're the hero and like you're indispensable is honestly a lot of times when you get cut because you're not only burning out but you're also like losing control and a grip of yourself, and now suddenly you're like, wait a minute, I need to be promoted, I need to get more money, whatever. So I think like don't underestimate how capable you are, commenter, because like whatever you're being told, I think there is validity to it, but don't underestimate what your 4 hours looks like versus someone's 8 hours.
No, I think that's really good advice. And I think that the part you were saying about don't be a hero, I think for a lot of people who are overachievers, which is what the jungle is about, it's hard for you to sandbag on anything that you're asked to do. Like of course I'm going to try my hardest. This is my employer. Like they're giving me a paycheck. I agreed to do this. I'm going to do it with full throttle. I'm trying to not care as
Yep.
much as possible. I was not what Bowtie Bull says, A minus,
Sure.
don't study for the day. Like that's just not who I am. I don't
Understand.
procrastinate. I do the homework. So it's very hard for me to pull back from my day job and not invest the mental effort into it. But I have to because that's not how I'm going to get free. But it's
Yep. I
hard. I feel guilty doing that.
No, I love this. And like I think my wife is pretty similar to this. Like she comes from like a 4.0 background, summa cum laude type vibe. Like I come from like I failed 4 college classes. Like I learned English as a second language. I barely fucking like I can't believe I'm still here. You know what I mean? Like so totally different backgrounds. And yet I think we feed off each other extremely well. And one of the pieces of advice I try to give her, which I'll give you today, is like it's not about how much you learn. Honestly, sometimes it's about how much you unlearn, right? Like you have wired into your mind that that A plus is the only way for you to like be extremely successful. And like, I'm not even asking you to get a B minus. I'm maybe a
Yeah,
B plus, like definitely sandbagging in the sense of like you're getting consistent D's. Like you're an idiot. Like that, I
right.
don't know who would ever say that, like I'm talking about show up, give me that B minus, B plus effort because you knowing that you are an A plus type of person, your B minus is like an A plus plus to anyone else, And
Mhm.
that if you can shift that mentality and realize I'm not asking you to work any less or any less hard, I'm just asking you to have perhaps less emotional investment in it and use that creative energy for commoner. You know what I mean? Like
Really.
that's how I show up. And like I think one of the main uh differentiators for my mentality too is like I just don't believe you in the sense of I don't believe that you want me to be in your family. I don't believe that you care about me. I
Mm,
don't believe that you have this DEI initiative to make me feel seen or whatever. I just don't believe you. And that helps me keep a bit of a barrier and stay a little bit cold because like just as how just as I'm getting paid for my work, like I'm only getting paid for my work because I'm delivering value, right? And so the hero piece is when, for example, let's say that there's like a work trip and I don't know, one of your colleagues was supposed to go and they can't go anymore. Why would you raise your hand and go do
yeah,
that?
yeah.
Like you are not some indispensable part of this organization. Now, if you know that that meeting was like, I don't know, investor meeting for like venture capital and like you're going to be able to be in that room and do all those things, then for sure, be smart about the things that you're doing. But like being the hero to me feels like the person who believes every ounce of their time and being needs to be at the job in order to get it done. And to that, I say, you just have not found a creative way to still deliver on your goals without completely burning yourself out.
Really good advice. Like if it saves you an hour and you still get the job done and it's an A minus,
Yep.
that's the right choice.
Yep. Yep. My SVP of marketing taught me, specifically talking about content marketing, but definitely a principle that I'm going to carry for the rest of my life. And it is ship it at 80% and iterate. And
Mhm.
like to this day, I talk about it on Content Captains. I will continue to talk about it. Like, what an incredible mentality shift that has come from me adopting the ship it at 80% and iterate mentality. Because what you're saying is you're not going to let perfectionism stop you. You're
Mhm.
going to still deliver the thing, but the and iterate part of it is, but I'm not going to ignore the fact that there were some deficiencies in what I just shipped. I want to make sure next time I ship this thing, I make sure that 80% gets just a little bit better, right? So suddenly your 80% is still increasing and getting better, but you're never getting past the 80. Does that kind of make sense?
No, that makes 100% sense.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons why my line of work can be very grading on that exact point is because the 80% of what we do is the answer that we deliver the client. Here's our solution or here's our recommendation. The other 20% is the typos, the formatting, the numbers on the chart. And if you screw up the typo, which has no impact on the answer and the recommendation, you look like an ass. And so we can get like, so that's what I think drives me freaking nuts is like we did all this work. I interviewed all of your customers. This is the right recommendation. You absolutely should do this. But the partner finds a typo on slide 37 at 10 p.m. on a Wednesday. Everyone stop what you're doing,
Oh,
burn the entire house down. We have to fix it. And that is just the nature of client work that you cannot avoid.
Commenter, you're more of a content marketer than you know. I mean, like these are the pains that we go through every day. These are the pains as well, like publishers and like people who've
uh,
done any publishing like
anything in
deal with.
writing.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think definitely look for that startup. I think it'll change your life. Yeah, for sure. Because like that stuff would drive me crazy and you're just too capable to be subdued, right? Like you're contained, you're a caged bird right now. Like you got to go. You got to go.
So everyone's telling me, so maybe I should. Maybe I should.
Let's go.
Well, we did take a side turn here onto the
I
startup.
love it. It's all good.
Thank you again so much for coming on. This has been a great conversation. For those listening, where should they find your stuff?
No, thank you for the opportunity. It was really such a wonderful time. If they want to find me, they can just go to contentcaptains.com. That is my website where I have all of these resources and the newsletter lives there. It's all directly powered by Substack. And then if not, my @ on X is @bowtied coquito, COQUITO. And that's it.
Awesome. Thank you again and have a great rest of your night.
Thank you, Commoner.